welcome back to the Unlock a Life You Love podcast. My name is Dr. Tim Teel. I am the doc of Unlock, and I have a very special guest with me today. His name is John Bygraves. John is a cancer survivor, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, but I am going to tell you to hold on to your shorts here because his story is pretty interesting and completely worth listening to, which is exactly why we brought him on the program. But increasingly, it's not all that uncommon. In fact, his story is becoming more and more common as some of these concepts that John is going to introduce to us today are implemented in people's lives. So I want to welcome John. I'm not going to sit here and talk over you, but welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here, and I'm very privileged to be here speaking with you today. So thank you for inviting me on.
No problem. So listen, I want to hear your story, and so today John works as a cancer survivor. He teaches other people how to do some of the same things, and he's an energy healer, a mentor to other cancer patients. But let's roll the clock back and start with your journey on this cancer thing, and tell us your story from where you started.
So my journey started back in 2017. So I was diagnosed in 2017, albeit my symptoms of my cancer started in the back end of 2016. My cancer was very rare in the sense where it was external. So I had a tumor on my upper lip that started, which I was misdiagnosed as it not being cancerous and just being a growth. That then led me to go into private healthcare to have it looked at, and it was removed and then surgically removed in a day surgery, and then it was then biopsied, which it then come back that it was actually cancerous, and it was an extremely rare form of cancer. And the cancer itself was known as an anaplastic large T-cell lymphoma.
Wow.
Which was pretty mad. And I was then fast tracked into the healthcare system. That took a little bit of time, but they put me into the system very quickly, and they kind of got me into the main healthcare system here in the UK in around about 3 to 4 weeks. But very quickly, instantaneously, I kind of like put the brakes on my entire kind of life where I was at that point, what led me up to that point. So just to give you a snapshot of my life before that, I used to party at weekends, I used to drink heavily, I used to, take some recreational drugs. So that immediately stopped. It immediately stopped. Just for example, I'd been trying to actually give up smoking for years. And it was just the sound of being told that I actually had cancer, that I immediately stopped. So I I went kind of cold turkey on my old life very quickly after that initial going to see the private dermatologist and having that growth removed off of my lip. So that's kind of where the work started very quickly. In that period of time, I knew about alternative holistic therapies that had been suppressed. How I found out about them is another story, but I knew of them, so I kind of just dived straight into that. So I immediately went home and started looking into Rife frequencies. So I started listening to Rife frequencies immediately, finding cancer Rife frequencies, which is Dr. Roy Raymond Rife. He was the creator of frequencies that were neutralizing and these cancer these cancer growths. So I started listening to that straight away. That led me down a kind of a rabbit hole of uncovering energy healing. I then started working with an energy healer here in London 3 times a week. This is before I've actually gone into the healthcare system to have any treatment whatsoever. So this is in like a 4-week period. Through working with him, I started learning how to incorporate other kind of holistic modalities and practices into my daily habitual routines and so on. So I started working diligently on doing that consistently every single day. And I was seeing the energy healer 3 times a week in that 4-week period. Then going into the actual healthcare system, which was a very, very traumatic experience to say the least. I was then, by that point, the growth that had started on my lip had then moved into my neck here. So I ended up with a tumor that had grown in my neck, probably the size of a fist. I think roughly around the size of in between the tennis ball or a softball. That's how big the tumor was in my neck. And it had broken out of the skin and was out, fully out in a visual sense. They biopsied that. They put 6 needles into that tumor, completely traumatized me through doing that. I could never get my head around and understand why they needed to do it, because I'd already been to a private dermatologist that had run biopsies on the original start of the whole process, and they'd already told the hospital what it was. So I could never get my head around and understand why they needed to do that again. But that's their system. That's how they do things. Lo and behold, yes, it come back and confirmed again exactly what they'd already been confirmed what it was. And they wanted to get me straight into radiotherapy, which initially I wasn't very, very comfortable with doing. In fact, I wasn't very comfortable with doing any form of conventional treatment whatsoever, because I didn't believe it was designed to help. In fact, I kind of knew that it just wasn't designed to help. But with severe pressure from my family and a lot of emotional blackmail, to put it that way, from family members, I decided to go ahead with it. I recollect one day being in Guy's Hospital in London, which is a specialist hospital for treating that type of cancer. And the leading radiographer in Guy's Hospital, she said to me, "I don't know what the hell you've been doing." She said, "But whatever it is you have been doing, please continue to do it." And I said to her, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Because that tumor on your neck," she said, "it's dead." And that was before I started any form of treatment whatsoever. So it was only in a 4-week period before I went ahead with doing this radiotherapy. Then I put myself through hell of doing the radiotherapy treatment, but at the same time still continued to work with the energy healer that I was working with, still continue to diligent work with this system that I'd kind of built for myself at home behind closed doors that I was doing on my own, working that alongside it. And yeah, I've done 6 weeks of radiotherapy. I had a scan to see how things had gone. There's like a 2-week cooling off period after you've had radiotherapy. And lo and behold, the cancer had spread. So I ended up with 2 tumors here in my neck, 2 tumors there in my neck, and one that was starting to grow here in my upper chest. So I ended up in total with 7 tumors. And at this point, they was seriously alarmed, and they was very, very, what shall we say, very, very impressed upon me that I then had to go and take chemotherapy. There was no choice. If I wasn't to take chemotherapy, you will be dead in 3 months. that's the prognosis that they gave me. If I was to take no treatment, you will die in 3 months' time. And when they did say that to me, I said to them I would think about it. And I took a very, very big step back, reassessed where I was kind of at, spoke with my energy healer who I was working with, and I was in a bit of a broken state, because it was a bit of a shock that it had then got worse before it ended up getting better, which I've found out through working with other people that this kind of happens. It gets worse before it gets better. But in my opinion, I believe that the radiotherapy and the biopsy caused it to spread. That's just my personal opinion, through my own experience. Nevertheless, I still continued with my diligent process, everything that I had in place. I then researched the chemotherapy that they wanted to inject into me. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. I then went and researched how I could actually make this work for me. How can I make this bad situation work for me? So then I started researching fasting. So I then started finding out that fasting, if you go into chemotherapy in a fasted state, you can actually make it work for you as it working against you. So I actually used to go into chemotherapy. I started my first ever chemotherapy session. I went in there on a 48-hour fast. So I was completely fasted, in a fasted state. Breezed through chemotherapy on the first round. Yes, I was a little bit fatigued, but I didn't kind of have any symptoms of, side effects or so on and so forth. So that was my kind of process. I was at this point as well, I was also eating raw fruits, vegetables, juicing like you wouldn't believe. It was kind of like my go-to. So I was predominantly mostly in a fasted, juice fasted state, and sometimes in a water fasted state and dry fasted state. So that was my kind of what was going on in the background, combining that with energy healing, combining that with grounding, breath work, cold shock therapy, all sorts of different stuff that was going on in the background. But I think it was by the second round of chemotherapy, after them telling me that I was going to die in 3 months, I actually had no cancer in my body at all. By the second round. By round 3, there was no need for him even to do round 3, because it was gone completely. But they turned around and said to me, chemotherapy is like a course of antibiotics. You have to see the course through. So I was like, okay, you know what? You've got me this far. I'm pretty much sure that I can handle this. So I continue to go through with the process that he wanted me to go through. So I ended up doing 6 or 7 rounds of chemotherapy. And then I walked out of there, with no cancer in my system at all. They wouldn't medically tell me that I was cancer free. But yeah, I've seen the scans. I know that there's nothing in my system, and yeah, that's my story of what I kind of gone through. I'm trying to keep that quite kind of short. And sweet.
Don't hold back. This is a forum. We want to hear your story. How long ago was this, John?
2007. Well, the back end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and by the time that I'd done all my treatment in hospital would have been around about the end of November, beginning of December 2017. So it's nigh on a year of treatment. But they was very, very adamant that at the end of my treatment that this cancer was going to come back within 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was
and here we are in July of 2024, and the last time you saw these cancer docs was when?
Yeah, that was the last time I saw that oncologist, and he said to me that was going to happen, and I just turned around and said to him, "We'll see about that." because I was like, you know what, this is only just going to make me want to continue on this path and this process of what I'd uncovered. And I was like, there's no way in hell this coming back. So I continue to do everything that I'd done in that first year. I continued to do it for another 2 years. It then become a part of who I am. So it's just like, now it's just, that's how I live my life. It's just kind of like how it unfolded. You know,
And John, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
36. Yeah,
Six.
36. So yeah, I actually turned 43 yesterday.
Oh, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another trip
Yeah.
around the sun, Hoss.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a process, and I continued down that road. During the treatment, I actually studied energy healing. So the energy healer that I was working with, he then became my teacher. He taught me how to become an energy healer whilst I was actually going through the treatment. So I was working on myself as well as him working on me energetically. After I went through chemo, I then traveled to the Czech Republic. I studied energy healing there for around about a month to an advanced level with him. So it just kind of snowballed. I saw such profound changes and results happen for me. That snapshot of that first 4 weeks of the work that we done together, and the work that I put in holistically, and changing and putting the brakes on in my life, and changing the diet, stopping all these things, I couldn't believe what I'd kind of done, and you know, the oncologist in Guy's Hospital kind of just confirmed everything for me. So I was like, why stop?
Right.
You know, I'm on the right path, so keep going.
So what did the other oncologists have to tell you? What was the last word that they had to say about it?
Um, they didn't really say much, to be honest. They didn't really say much. I recall one time being in the before I was going into chemo, because you have to be, you know, tested to see if your blood cells are at a good point before you go in for chemo, which I never had a problem with. And my regular oncologist wasn't there, and I had to see a standing oncologist. And she said to me, she said, "Oh, so you're John?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm John." I said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Because you're a celebrity." She said, you what you've done is not really a regular run of the mill thing." She said, "We talk about you round the table all the time." She said, you're a celebrity amongst us doctors." So I was like, well, okay, I must be doing something right. So
You're definitely a curiosity, and you know, unquestionably, but you're not alone. Okay,
no,
no, this is
no,
not
no,
the
of
first
course
time
not.
that they've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And you know, I everything that I was doing, everything I was doing, there's like a long list of the things that I was doing in outside of this, you know, this conventional treatment, if you want to call it that. I told them everything. I told them, I didn't hold back, I didn't lie, because I wanted to make them aware of what I was doing. You know, I wanted to make them aware of the things that I was incorporating. Whether they listened or they didn't listen, I didn't really care, but I was going to make them aware that I was doing it, and this is what was doing. You know, this is how, you know, how things really are. How things really are. I recall a point of time in that process where I actually asked the oncologist, "Could you recommend me what sort of diet I should be having, or should be consuming whilst I'm going through this process?" And he turned around to me and said, "If you want to eat burger and chips, you eat burger and chips. If you feel like you want to eat some sweets, go and eat some sweets." Now, I don't know whether he was saying that to me because he wrote me off, or he was just being plain damn ignorant. But I believe that he actually wrote me off. That's my personal opinion. But as well as being extremely ignorant, I just found it really, really shocking that if that's the kind of advice that he's kind of giving to any of his other patients, and they're not incorporating this type of work that I was doing, then they're not in a good place, and that's pretty bad.
So, what did you learn about cancer? What's your opinion about cancer now?
It's a natural thing to happen in your system. It's your body. The way that I view it is your body protecting itself from the overburden of toxemia that has been created in your system through years and years and years of really, really poor choices that you've made.
So you're saying you chose to have cancer?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I put myself there. I take full responsibility for where I was through the really, really poor choices that I've made. But then, where did them poor choices come from? You have to dig a little bit deeper. You have to try and find out, where did them poor choices come from? Well, for me, started in my childhood, started from the trauma that I suffered as a child. Then as a teenager, as an adult, these traumas and traumatic experiences all compound and lead to you making poor choices. If you leave yourself in a very, very vulnerable, emotional, traumatized state, you can't think straight. You can't make good decisions. You can't make good choices. You're certainly not going to make the right choices in terms of the things that you're going to eat. You're certainly not going to make the right choices in terms of, especially if you're emotionally traumatized. Me personally, I wanted to escape that. So, I used to go and bury my head in recreational drugs, drinking, partying all weekend, because I just didn't want to have to deal with all of that stuff that I'd kind of gone through. So, yeah, there is a root cause of where that stems from. So, I kind of uncovered that. I know that there are other people that have certainly done that, and it's well documented. But I didn't know about it, so it's something that I had to I kind of worked out for myself that there's
So no, so let's say out loud, and I want you to say it, what you believe the root cause of your cancer was.
emotional trauma.
Oh, sounds good. All right. Now we're gonna cut things off for this segment of the Unlock a Life You Love podcast. I've got John Bygraves on here. John is a 7-year survivor of a pretty nasty cancer, an anaplastic lymphoma, which is a very, very deadly diagnosis. Here he is 7 years later. Was given 3 months to live, and yet here we are having a conversation. He looks pretty healthy to me. How you feeling, John? You feeling pretty healthy?
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm in the best health I've ever been in my life.
All right. No, so listen, no, come back next week and we'll finish the conversation with John Bygraves. My name's Dr. Tim Teel. This is the Unlock a Life You Love podcast. I am the Doc of Unlock, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much, John.